Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another anime review, and for this anime review I'll be covering the first two episodes of Akuma Kun. Now, I'll give the synopsis first of each episode before I give my written notes in relation to each of the episode, and also my overall afterthoughts and rating for these episodes. So for the first episode, it's called Demons. The synopsis we are given: a university student asks Akuma Kun to investigate the strange deaths of two of her friends, who have both died on the exact same date and time. For the second one, it's called the episode is called Gluttony. Hina looks after Ichika, but danger still lurks nearby. Akuma Kun further investigates the case by making another visit to the Asanagi house. Now, I'll make sure that you get to see the synopsis through this interview, as well as some of the images connected to preferably, who we see in the story, or the main characters that we see in the story. So moving into my main written notes of this review, starting off with episode 1, which is roughly 25 minutes long. I've pretty much put down the same for the second, but you'll see its exact time when you see it on screen. So starting off the episode at an occult research institute, we meet Mephisto the Third doing some chores for Akuma Kun. In other words, Akuma Kun of 2023, not the original Akuma Kun of the 1980s. So we will get to see a little bit more about that when I cover a little bit more. And having a small heated discussion between. Moving into the next scene, we see a student being followed by a demon, and who is then killed off screen. After that, we move into the research institute as they get their first new client, by which we learn her name is Hina, and we learn of her friends' deaths, and how she has also had disturbing dreams going on. Going to the Asanagi household, to where she lives. Akuma goes to see her room on the second floor, and and her mother. He asks her mother for some hotcakes. Even though Mephisto the Third Mephistopheles tells him that he's being quite rude in some of the things that he's doing. As we further move into the story, there's a little bit more talk about her friends' deaths, and he notices something a little bit out of place to come across in their investigation. As they leave Hina that night, Hina is disturbed at 2:23 a.m. in her room by a demon to appear. Mephisto the Third walks on a path with Akuma as they have a look at the deaths located on a bit of a map, only to realize that the map of all the deaths seem to bring up and make up a pentagram. We then move a little bit further into the story as we start to return to the one of her friends' locations, or narrowing to one of the locations, going to her friend Achika's house, only to see a demon appear, but also learning that that particular demon is a bit of a shadow, so it's not the actual source, but an appearance from the source, only to be saved from the original, or the 1980s, Akuma Kun, whose name is Shingo, until we move into the next scene. Jumping into episode 2, I say roughly 25 minutes long, even though it's a little bit less overall. Akuma Kun is saved by the 1980s Akuma Kun, Shingo. So we learn in this little bit of event, we learn a little bit more about the present Akuma Kun, and that he's also adopted, but he's got very similar hair to the 1980s Akuma Kun. And we learned that his name is called Ichiro. So with the present day Akuma Kun taking in basically mental notes from Shingo, his adoptive dad, he works with those notes into looking for some more information about the demon that they're actually after, to which we eventually end up returning back to the house of Hina Usanagi, to which we learn that Hina isn't who she really is. Whilst this is occurring, we have Mephisto III, who is a little bit upset and basically returns to the Umareji household, to which Shingo also lives, but he also lives there with him too. And he has a little bit of a talk with basically, I guess, grandparents or guardians of him at the time being. We do learn that he's a little bit upset, but whilst this is occurring, Ichiro, the present Akuma Kun, calls or summons Mephisto III to come and help him to take on the actual demon that they are up against. And not long after that, the case is solved, to which we learn that who Hina really was actually a demon, which was a Grimoire glutton, and is finally returned to the world of the underworld. Not long after that, the case is closed, and Ichiro and Mephisto eventually leave by going to a ramen shop, and we're teased for the next episode of what is to occur. So moving into the afterthoughts of these particular episodes, as I'm sort of like new to the series of like the creator of Akuma Kun, and managing to get a hold of the Kintaro manga, which I still need to read, I have tried to watch like the first somewhat episodes of the original 1980s, just to get a bit of an understanding of how this world works. And we see sort of like the Akuma Kun of this particular world being used to basically bring back demons that are from the underworld, that are in the present world, back into their location. So in a way, it's sort of like a gotta catch 'em all situation. If anything, we can see that this creator has also probably played a really big part in the idea of how the Pokemon franchise came to be. Instead of it being demons of sorts, they changed it to something else, so basically like type of animals, but where in this case, this is like a story going back to its roots. I did enjoy the fact of how the first 2 episodes have basically honoured what came before, And that I really enjoyed, as it was really nice seeing the character of Shingo return, who I do know is from the 1980s, and I've tried to watch the original 1980s one. There is apparently, with the 1980s one, you can get a hold of like all of the Raw episodes, but they're not all translated into English, and I would love to watch that whole series translated into English. It's that interesting and that intriguing that I want to watch and check out for myself, as well as pick up the manga in English. So moving into the present day Akuma Kun, who we learn is Ichiro, who is under the Umareji household, and he's basically Shingo's adopted son. We do learn that this character, it takes quite a bit for him to get somewhat motivated, but we do get to see him put the time and effort into learning his craft, or learning what he's all about. And one of the things that I really saw that helped this character was actually bringing in the original 1980s Akuma Kun. And after that played out in not only the end of the first episode, but also what we saw of it in the second episode. We even have Mephisto the Third, to which I'm going to have to call him Mephisto the Third because his name is just way too long to say. Come back and see us again. And I really hope we do get to see the character return again and work a little bit more with the present day Akuma Kun. Because at the moment, they do feel like a bit of a support character, and the way this support character was used was fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. And in this, it sort of gives a bit of a slightly higher rating than what I would normally give supporting characters in, say, the first 2 episodes. Another thing too that this story did is these first 2 episodes, it really subverted my expectations. Now, I'm sure you've heard of Rian Johnson trying to subvert the expectations of Star Wars fans. Yeah, well, compared to this, he absolutely sucks. I mean it. Compared to these first 2 episodes, he stinks at it. Because what was done here with these first episodes, I did not expect the character of Hina to be a demon that was in contract with the original parents, to which we learned that the original parents played a part in murdering their daughter, which is really sad to see. But in the process of murdering their daughter, they do a contract with a demon, to which we learn is Gromari Gluttony, which is like a female demon in this universe. And that character is basically used to take their place until it's like discovered at the end. And of course the police come to the scene and the case is solved. That was absolutely fantastic, and I am looking forward to reviewing the next 2 episodes. So now it's time for moving into the rating of the main characters. Well, for the main characters, even though the main characters are Mephisto the Third presently and Ichiro, the present day Akuma Kun, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, but that is subject to change in future episode reviews. So I really hope that this story picks up a little bit more, to which I'm actually going to come to enjoy the characters more. In the supporting characters, we had, of course, the original Akuma Kun from the 1980s, and I really enjoyed seeing that character return. And I didn't expect to see him turn up in the very first episode. I thought, if they're going to bring this character in, they're probably going to bring him around halfway. No. Again, it subverted my expectations. And it did what a lot of Western movie series just cannot do. And talk about outright respect for the character. It even looks like they brought in the original voice actor for the original 1980s Akuma Kun as well. And I enjoyed the interaction between the present and the past one. And because of that, and also seeing what was happening with the demons and also the other characters in this particular first story, I give the supporting characters an 8 out of 10. My goodness, it was incredible. So next thing is the rating for the animation. Now, with some of this animation, is it perfect in any way? No, not at all. But I must admit, there were some really nice scenes within the animation, but there are also some scenes that you could definitely see that they took from like a manga or a comic panel, just the way it was presented. And I really quite like that, but is it enough to sort of like give it a high rating for the present 2 episodes? Well, sure enough, I did give the animation a 7.5 out of 10. This is subject to change in future episodes. Next is the area of the soundtrack. For these first 2 episodes, I must admit, I did actually quite like the new soundtrack for this Akuma Kun series, to which I gave the soundtrack not only for the intro, but also for like other parts within the story, an 8 out of 10. I really liked it. And again, it is subject to change. It might go lower, it might go higher, depending on how well the story is presented. Last but not least, the story rating. I think the first story, or first 2 episodes of, say, the first story arc, I am really, really surprised with how this story was actually delivered. Yes, we get to meet Mephisto the Third. Yes, we get to meet the present day Akuma Kun. And also, what we're also learning about, I guess, this world's universe's interpretation of how, I guess, the Millennial Research Institute Society goes to investigate, I guess, paranormal events, especially events involving the supernatural, and even spirits and a bit of horror as well. We also get to learn a little bit more about the characters of what we see in the story, and I think what was presented, like with the first case character, the way it just caught me off guard. Fantastic, well done. You've got me ready got me ready to watching the next 2 episodes and them up for a review. So, for the other thing that we learn about the characters, especially learning about Ichiro, and I really hope we learn more about this character in this particular season. And yes, this is a season 1, so there's no doubt going to be a season 2 to this in the future, and I really hope I'm around to give the review of it. For the overall rating for these first 2 episodes, I give it an 8 out of 10. Again, this is subject to change in the future. It could be lower, it could be higher. And I will be doing an overall review of all 12 episodes. So until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day. If you've watched these first 2 episodes, what is it that stood out to you that you really enjoyed? Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.